So if you've been following the market the last couple of years, you'll know that the AI hype slash craze has been what's largely driving it. Again, talking about the markets. You also know that the big winner has been Nvidia. And so the question is, how long can this AI craze go? Well, Nvidia just had their earnings today, and I want to go over it with you. And let's just jump right in. So these are the headlines. Nvidia breaks sales record despite Chinese trade hiccups. And there's a whole rigmarole with that, whether or not Nvidia should sell chips to China at all. Then Trump wanted a piece of the action. If Nvidia is indeed going to sell chips, he's like, hey, give me 15% of the revenue. So there's that. And essentially what it is, Nvidia is the most valuable company in the world these days. It was Apple for quite a long time. Now Apple's in third spot. And Microsoft is number 2. Then you got Google, Amazon, Meta, right, your Facebook. Saudi Aramco, Broadcom, TSM, Tesla is still up there. So Tesla's still a bubble. Yes, it totally is. And Berkshire Hathaway. I do want to note that Berkshire Hathaway has been selling off a ton of Apple. Every time I check on them, Warren Buffett and the boys are like, hey, let's just dump more Apple. Now, they've never been a big buyer of, say, like an Nvidia. That's been a lot of the sort of younger, newer hedge funds, and they've done quite well. If you went all in on Nvidia, you've done absolutely fantastic. So congratulations to people who did that. But the question is, how long can this go? And when you look at Nvidia, you can see right there. I mean, they're the blue line right there. Like they've been driving the market like crazy. If you are in the market and you have an index fund, which I recommend for most people, because then you don't have to worry about picking winners and losers. You just have it all, right? The S&P 500. Nvidia has been a large chunk of the returns. And then what we do is we check is like, okay, is there still economic activity? Is Nvidia still making money? Is there still the AI craze? Well, this chart here tells you a lot. So there are predictions in here, okay? So some of it is actual, others are predictions, but they're just like, yo, this is their quarterly revenue. It just keeps going up. So, I mean, at the moment, it seems like the money is indeed flowing, but here's the big but. You have to understand the markets are forward-looking, and the idea is that, I'm investing in something now, I'm buying a stock, and I'm hoping everyone else, buys said stock, and we're all expecting it to grow to infinity. However, there's going to be a point where the growth is going to slow. And that's the question. Are we here already? Sam Altman recently was saying, there's definitely hype in the markets. And Sam Altman's the OpenAI guy, which I talk about several times on this channel. And then the Jensen Huang guy, during all the earnings calls, he has to convince everyone, no. The spending is going to keep continuing, and we're going to keep, doubling everything, and it's all going to be awesome. And I just want to make it clear. Yes, their revenue actually exploded. I mean, you can see it the last, year, really, from 24 to 25. It's just the craze is like whoop, and everyone's like, hey, we need to go out and buy Nvidia chips. So this was the headlines then. This is from Bloomberg. Nvidia falls, referring to the stock, after data center revenue misses estimate. Okay. So again, Wall Street estimates are just really high on this thing. They want it to just keep growing to infinity. But there comes a point where simplest way to describe it is, let's say, for example, every state and every city in the nation builds a data center. Okay. So the first couple of years, there's a massive growth in all these data centers and such. But there comes a point where we're like, okay, we got enough data centers, no more data centers, right? And the growth will slow. And so that's the question is when do you reach the, saturation point where you just can't build any more of these things? We're not going to buy any more. And then Nvidia is probably going to have to get people addicted to their chips. That'll be their business model, to where, hey, you buy this year's version and next year there's a new one that comes out and you got to buy it again, right? And you got to keep convincing people to do that every year. But I think the money's eventually going to dry up. I think we can all see it. It's just when. So this is what it says here. Quarterly data center sales miss estimates, although not exactly what Wall Street expected. Sees third quarter revenue of 54 billion plus or minus 2%. Okay. Company adds 60 billion to share buyback plan. So I guess we're just buying back more shares. I know Jensen Huang's been selling shares also. Just want to be aware of that. That's not a big news necessarily, because what they do, the CEOs have these stock plans in place, and they'll kind of regularly do that. No H20 sales to China customers in second quarter. Okay, that's big. So what's going on with because if you want to have, growth forever, you got to sell it to as many places as you can, of course. And then shares are down 3% in the post market. Okay. So that means it's less than expectations. And this is a summary real quick. It says, so less than 10 minutes from the conference call, the roundup of opinions is that this is far from a disaster. Well, that's good news, but short of lofty expectations that are commonplace for Nvidia, right? We want to hear Jensen say that everything's going to go awesome and you're all going to go to the moon. And in fact, I mean, you can see it in the numbers here. It's like revenue jumps 56% on robust AI demand. So clearly there's still money, going to it, but for how long? And so then what they do, and this is kind of funny when you read through this stuff, the CEO of any company has to come out and say, hey, everything's awesome and great. And Jensen then goes through the rigmarole trying to convince you that the spending is going to continue. And so this is sort of why, if you guys understand all this together, we track the markets of like, okay, where's the money flowing? You also want to track the politics of a particular country of like, hey, the government's encouraging people to invest in this, encourage people to invest in that. They're giving tax credits for this or that, or they're cutting back regulations for this or that. And then the ramifications of all these things. It's all connected. The big problem I have with the AI stuff is the end game. The end game is we're all going to buy these chips to ultimately they argue that we're going to have more productivity. But I think that what it really means is, CEOs of companies, because it's all market driven, want to keep profit margins. So for example, if I can, hire someone really cheap, right, inexpensive, and doesn't matter which country they're in or what city they're in, I just want cheap labor, I will do that. And many companies have done that. And that creates a lot of problems that we have today, as you guys know, say in the USA, because people are like, they took our jobs, which I totally understand. I don't want to downplay. I just want to explain it that this is all a drive for profit, right? And once you get this world, you'll get it. So then in the AI situation, if a CEO is like, hey, if I could just fire all my workers and just have a bunch of robots that work 24/7, they don't complain, they do whatever I say, I'm going with that, right? But the problem is, I'm sure you can see it coming, is, okay, so if all the robots run everything, what do the humans do and who's going to buy said products? Like it doesn't, put it in the most simplest terms. If I automate everything at McDonald's, right, which you certainly can do, and there's always going to be innovations in technology for that, right? You can make burgers faster, shakes faster, stuff like that. Okay, so then let's say we take out all the humans of McDonald's, for example, and we have all these robots and AI and kiosks and stuff like that. So then if I don't have jobs at McDonald's, where's my money going to come from to buy stuff at McDonald's? You guys see where this is going. Now, certainly the economy will transform to where there's some jobs that we just don't do so much anymore, right? If you go to, like, say, for example, an auto factory, we use that example, and you get these big robot arms, or you go to Amazon, shipping factory, again, big robot arms or whatever. This is one example. And there's certain things that it's just definitely way more efficient with machines. So we just need less labor. And so then you have to think about how can you get your skills to reorient to match the current labor needs of the market. And some people, like, how can I say, they don't necessarily want to always adapt with the changes. And that's something I try to do with you guys on the channel every day, is just keep you informed, which is a big part of adapting to everyday life changes, to always keep up with what's going on, keep up with your skills, keep up with what's going on in your industry. You always learn something new every day, and there's so many benefits to that. And as I always say, your mind is a muscle, just like your body, and you have to exercise it every day. And yes, I do exercise, both my mind and my body as best as I can, because I do mention I don't film in the gym, and I probably should, I guess, just to demonstrate it to you guys, because I want to emphasize that it's not just your mind. You do also have to have a healthy body, be it eat food that's healthy, exercise, etc. And I write about all this stuff in my book, which you should check out. I'm just mentioning these things because I want you guys to see the full picture of this stuff. And then going back to the market stuff, if you talk about Jensen Huang, so he tries to make the case as, like, this is what he says. He says, Huang is arguing that just 4 hyperscalers have doubled investment to $600 billion per year. What will happen when everyone else starts writing big checks? So he's making the case, guys, look at all these companies, everyone out there, they're all going to buy our chips, and everyone's going to invest a whole bunch of money in this stuff. And so, right, he's trying to convince everyone that AI is going to be awesome, etc. And they might be. Maybe we're all going to be buying Nvidia, possibly. Huang is asked about the forecast of $3 trillion to $4 trillion being spent in AI infrastructure, data centers and such, by the end of the decade and how much he thinks Nvidia will capture. Now that's the interesting part because there's going to be competition for Nvidia in the future. So I would agree we're going to keep buying chips the same way we're going to keep, well, let me correct myself. I gotta say the same way we keep buying computers. I'll correct myself there because actually one thing I've been impressed with Nvidia because I started to see it here in Korea, and I know it's also in USA, and it's actually been a pretty interesting rollout. People are going to actually be buying less hardware, and ultimately we're going to be doing a lot of cloud streaming stuff. Now it's going to depend on your situation if you have fast enough internet, and the basic idea is that you won't need to upgrade your hardware every year because you'll be streaming from a remote computer wherever that data center is, and it's got to be close to you to effectively, you want high speed, so you have very low latency. Point being though is that as a consumer, it actually is pretty cool if I can, do whatever computer needs that I want to do from my phone or my tablet, and I don't have to worry about hardware, and then I'd subscribe to a monthly subscription to use NVIDIA's servers or whatever, because I think other companies are going to get in this game. And then the thing for NVIDIA, they're going to say, okay, we're going to get on the platform side to sell people our, cloud services, etc. And then other companies, even if they want to get into that, ocean, if you want to call it blue or whatever, they're also going to buy NVIDIA chips. The thing I want to mention, but that's what Jensen Huang would say. The thing I want to mention though is that what happens when China gets into the game and heavily into the game, right? The same way that China is now making a lot of electric vehicles, they make phones, all kinds of stuff. And it's not just China. Don't discount the Koreans. I'm here in Korea. I'm just telling you guys, Koreans make pretty good products. The difference though is that China's got it's big. They got a lot of natural materials that they can actually make this stuff on. And I'd have to look exactly, at every single company in China. But I do know there is a fight definitely to get, their hands on said natural minerals or rare earth minerals, whatever you need to make, the stuff. And this is also where you get into international conflict / war over these things, fight over resources, right? But China will ultimately, though, come in cheaper, as it looks like they're already doing, and perhaps surpass NVIDIA. And so that's where, from the U.S. perspective, you want workers who are knowledge-based workers who can design better stuff and try to keep ahead. So I do agree in the respects, because I want to be honest with you. So like when Trumpy says, hey, USA should try to stay ahead of China, I totally agree. You should keep bringing in the best people you possibly can. You should, always keep your education and university strong. And so the problem with the Trump people is they're doing two things at the same time. They say, hey, let's, try to be the best that we possibly be. But yet Trump people are all saying, hey, let's attack education and defund, things. So it doesn't really make sense, but there's a lot of stuff they do that don't make sense. But China, though, is developing their chip industry. And I mean, look out. I'm telling you guys, it's real. Anyone who's ever been to Asia, you'll know. I'm not just making random stuff up. China is a real country, the same way that Japan is, or Korea is, etc. And you never know. I mean, someday maybe India, Vietnam, Thailand, some of these other countries will start to get into this game as well. It's just a matter of time. But at the moment, you can see headlines here. China seeks to triple output of AI chips and race with the U.S. And in fact, Lutnick, as I was showing you guys before, he was kind of insulting China, but Lutnick does a lot. And sort of people in Trump's administration do that quite a lot. And it actually really ticks off foreign governments and foreign consumers. And in a place like China, if the government says, you're not buying American stuff, they just won't do it, because the government can force companies not to do it. So it's a whole other ballgame over there. So that's where we're at right now. I just want to give you guys an overview. Yes, NVIDIA is still making money. They didn't meet expectations of Wall Street, right? So Wall Street's like, hey, you're going to grow to infinity. And also, too, it looks like we're definitely in some sort of a bubble. But when exactly the bubble will pop and how much it'll pop is anyone's guess. But I do worry about the end game, as I talk about quite a bit on this channel. So that's what's going on. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'll catch you all in the next video.